been putting it off because of how great of a show it is. But, I was thinking SUGO was one of our sponsors. And I was like, we did the great ad read here and whatnot, but would it have been better if we dressed up like mafia members, mafiosos, and we were just sitting in an Italian restaurant like Artie's place, Vesuvio?
You know what? I need to get back to rewatching all the Sopranos.
Well, you're infamous for your Tony Soprano shirts.
Yeah, yes, I was. Yes.
Just about every time I saw you for a while, it was like I was talking to the Don himself. Literally.
I figured out why I wore those, because it was so easy.
Yeah, they're comfortable, right?
Yeah. The only problem was, I seemed to drop food.
Yeah.
And you know what? I felt like Omar the tent maker I was having to go and get to build my shirts out. But anyway,
yeah.
I know that we're just sitting here talking, but I'm going to tell you something. I enjoyed the hell out of Breaking Bad. El Camino wasn't all that good.
It didn't live up to Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
The Better Call Saul has.
We're into the second season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I got the first 3 seasons, and I need to go back and rewatch because I took too long of a break. So I want to rewatch it from the beginning. But yeah, that's an outstanding series. And the Sopranos shirt, you mentioned the comfort. I've officially kind of become the typical fat Southern guy in a fishing shirt because they're comfortable and they're cool. And it's hot as hell.
Hey, as long as you throw a T-shirt on underneath, you don't have to worry about you're out the door. Hell, I got to the point where I wasn't buttoning the 2 here, and I just put it over top.
That works.
Talking about lazy.
Yeah. It's not lazy, it's comfort.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're rolling. Jacob's telling us we're rolling. So welcome into the Reckoning Sports Tourism Podcast. This is Don Staley, the man, the myth, the legend. I'm just the co-host, Zack Tigert. We've got a great show coming up today, though. We're talking Druid City Music Festival, which took place in August of 2019. It was an outstanding event. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. I was on a job interview the weekend that it was happening in town. But I know it was a baby of yours, kind of a pet project of yours, and a ton of positive feedback within the community. And we've got some great guests coming up.
Tell you what, I'm looking forward to these guests. You've got Bo Hicks, owns Druid City Brewing, and without him, we couldn't have pulled this off. He gave us so much intel. You got Matt Ray and his wife, Nikki Ray. Matt will be here. Again, he Eat My Beats. He's getting ready to open a new place, the Sanctuary. Talk about heavy lifting, the stage in itself. And then, of course, Jim Page, without Jim and the Chamber of Commerce. And then, of course, my brother, my partner in crime, Cameron Moss. We fought like brothers, but I'm going to tell you what, that guy was a superstar. So we'll talk with them and a host of other folks that we'll mention that made the event special.
Absolutely. Just a quick reminder, we are sponsored by Buffalo Rock. I want to thank them for our delicious Pepsis that we enjoy throughout the show. Big thanks to Southmark Designs as well for these excellent shirts that we're rocking. But yeah, looking forward to a great show today.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
And welcome back into the Reckoning Sports Tourism Podcast. We've got some awesome guests joining us today here in the Moon Room at Druid City Brewing. We've got Jim Page, who's the former West Alabama Chamber of Commerce president and CEO. He's joining us via Zoom. And then right here with us in studio, we've got Matt Ray, who owns Eat My Beats here locally in Tuscaloosa. 2 guys instrumental in this festival.
Without question. First of all, Jim, welcome to the show and good to see you again. We miss you here in Alabama. How are things in Huntsville?
They're good. They're good. Family's good in transition now, but we miss you guys, miss Tuscaloosa a lot, and can't wait to get back down there and enjoy some football in a few weeks.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you as well down here and then maybe up there too. We're going to take this show on the road to the Shoals. We're going to be up there in the Shoals on the 21st. I know that that's just a stone's throw from you, but again, without you and your staff and the wherewithal, we couldn't have pulled this thing off. And it's coming up on 5 years. Of course, the guy sitting to my right, without him and his wife and his team, between the 56 bands and 19 venues, all the things that they did, we would not have been able to do this. And two stories real quick that I remember, Jim took off probably a couple days before the festival to help me with setup. And he came up to me and he says, "What do you need?" I said, "A Diet Coke, and I need my glasses. I broke my glass. I've lost my glass." He goes out and gets that. He's there helping during the setup of the event. When we had the weather that came around, he was there setting it back up. This guy right here to my right, my gosh, I mean, I could tell so many stories about him and his team and what he did, but one story that stands out is remembering the close down of the event. I think it took 3 days to break down. We had so much rain. It didn't rain hardly all summer, and it rained during our event.
Monsoon, yeah.
But anyways, I know you're a busy guy, and your time is valuable, just like Jim's. So you get ready to open a new place.
Yes, sir. We have a music venue, bar, restaurant that we're opening. Took an old church, 1920s church, and converted it to our sanctuary, which is music. So that's got the name.
And you've been sampling a little bit too. I mean,
Yeah, we do a lot of research.
yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, you've got a really, really good podcast out there too.
We got Boozy Spirits with Justin Grimble, jalapeno. So yeah, it's fun. Music, booze,
Yeah.
the fun stuff applies.
It's a good combo.
It is.
Well, it's a little too early for us to start here, but we'll jump right into this. And Jim, right out of the gates, I'm going to ask you, how do you remember this thing getting started? Because I mean, you were instrumental. So what do you remember? How did it all go down?
I remember several years ago, there had been a lot of conversation among people about the need for some type of music festival because music had been such an important part of Tuscaloosa's background and it being a cool college town. People talk about all the cool bands they've seen, in the past at Coleman Coliseum and at other places. So a lot of us, sitting around at happy hour, many a day would talk about the need for that. But we did our first community benchmarking trip to Greenville, South Carolina. And that trip, Don, I think was like maybe your first week on the job. I mean, it was like right out of the gate, but you made that trip. And so after the first night, we're all sitting around in a hotel lobby and enjoying a cold one and talking about the need for that music festival. And obviously music's near and dear to your heart. And so you bought in right that second. And the rest was history. You took it and ran with it. And a lot of people wanted it to happen, but I don't think anybody else had the wherewithal to pull it off like you did. But in my mind, that kind of casual conversation sitting on couches in Greenville, South Carolina is where the idea really, really, I think, got legs. And then you were the man that pulled everybody together, start to finish, to make it happen. And so it was an awesome experience, start to finish.
Well, I've gone on so many of those benchmarking trips with you guys and enjoyed every single one of them. They were all different, but you're right. I did get there. It was the first week on the job. I got my family to the North Carolina coast, caught a plane, got to Greenville, got up, got checked in, and then up to the rooftop bar, I think it was. And you're right. There were some folks holding court. And as I remembered it, I think somebody said, Staley can do it. So, you know what? It's like the way I look at it, you're only as good as the people around you. And I got very, very, very fortunate and lucky to surround myself with so many good people. Chuck Citizen and C.M. Newton and Kirk McNair, those guys told me when I got into the tourism realm, admit what you don't know, surround yourself with smarter people. And tapping into the Chamber of Commerce volunteerism with all that they do, that was instrumental. Then it went from there to sitting out here at Druid City Brewing for almost 2 hours in the hot sun with Bo. Bo's like a music encyclopedia. And then that led me to an old friend. Who doesn't know music like Matt and Nikki? So spending time with them. Matt, tell me, what did you think about it when we all got started? What do you remember?
I was very hopeful that it would happen, and I knew if anybody could do it, you could pull the sponsorship and the money, because it's not a cheap endeavor to bring. So I just knew that once you took hold of it, it would go.
Well, as I look back, there was a lot of research, like what you're doing to open your restaurant.
Right.
I'm sitting here looking at this list of some of the bands, Barbara Rowe and Smoothhound Smith. I was up for business in Minneapolis at a convention, and so after hours, I'm doing the side work because I know we're going to do a music festival, and I saw them at a club, and they looked at me like I had three heads. Who is this guy? I've never heard of the Druid City, Tuscaloosa, whatnot. And even though they didn't get a crowd over there at the great venue at the Bama Theater, they were talented musicians. And we could go through some of these musicians that we had here. And I know that when we have Cameron Moss come on, we're going to talk about how we book some of these folks. But, it was a blast. It was exciting. It was new to me to put all this into play. But again, without the folks that are here today, we couldn't have done it. Jim, what kind of challenges did you remember from the event, leading up to the event or during the event?
When you start anything new, you have to sell the concept and get buy-in. And so I know early on, we spent a lot of time trying to tell what is going to be the economic and quality of life benefit of having a music festival. I think we get it. But we had to really sell it to the community. And again, that started with you, Don. And I think you did yeoman's work of kind of just shoe leather of talking to people, getting on the ground and explaining to people why a music festival like this was going to be good, not only for citizens and residents, but how it was going to bring people from out of town and put heads in beds, which is, that's tourism 101. And it did all of that. What I thought one unique thing was, usually when you think of a festival, you think of one location, one kind of open field, and you've got maybe a couple of stages. The fact that you were able to create partnerships with so many different venues in town and really provide music options for everybody. There was literally something for everybody, and it really showcased what all the community had to offer. That was unique. And special, and I think it's what set the apart, set the whole music festival apart. Now, logistics nightmare, which again you and your team handled like absolute pros, because you've got literally so many moving parts going on all over town. But because you had established an army of volunteers who really bought into the vision, we were able to divide and conquer, and that's what made it, I think, really, really unique when it comes to a music festival.
That's a nice segue, talking about the operations part of it. But first, let me talk about this. You were the guy also that was helping me with ideas, running up to Florence, Handy Festival. You remember you telling me about this pilgrimage festival? Oh my God, I learned so much up there. Aubrey Preston was the guy's name. He was a curator for the event. And spending time with him, bringing him down to Tuscaloosa. Of course, right here in our backyard, for years and years, they did the music festival. I'm drawing a blank on the name, with Poogie Pool and all those guys. City Fest, which was here for 25 years or so, which was an amazing event. So we could go to work, go to school off of some of those things. But anyways, you helped me with so many of those events. And, I love the pilgrimage. I still do. And then also, I'd be remiss, I know we're going to talk about with Cameron, because he didn't get me Government Mule and Warren Haynes. That led me to going all those years up to Asheville for the Christmas Jam. But back to the operations part, I'm sitting here when Jim said operations, I'm thinking Sarah Hegum.
Oh, yeah.
Sarah Hegum owns some of the team that she put together. It is not simple. It is not easy in the least bit to put one of these. There's so many moving parts. Talk a little bit about that, your wife, Nikki, your staff, and Sarah, how they did all this.
Just on the music side alone, you have to bring a stage in because you have to have a big stage for a festival. And nobody in Alabama had one, so we had to bring one in for Canada. The lights, the sound, I mean, there's not many production companies in the state that have something for that, for the festival. So just getting all that together, getting the people there, and all these venues, like you said, it was a logistical nightmare that somehow got pulled off.
I mean, I'm just thinking about what Sarah pulled out of her, hey, you can cut that out. I was getting ready to say something. That's the first time I've done that. I will never forget Sarah pulling a rabbit out of her hat with regards to the green rooms, the locker rooms, the staging areas for the bands. They came up with the idea for RVs. You know, the footprint is nice. It's beautiful. Government Plaza, without question. I thought it was a great venue. But it is a little tight for a big festival. And we didn't have any places to put the bands. So they came up with the idea of, you know, they're going to be at the hotels for the most part, but then they're going to come over on site. Each one of those had an RV. I mean, who would have thought of that? Great job, Sarah. You know, I don't know if it was Sarah or Nikki or who it was that told me, Don, there is no way you're going to be able on Friday night to get to 19 different venues walking around. Hire one of those carts. I can't remember the name of the cart company here locally, but we hired a cart company, and I got to see all 19. I would see we would get to the very first one, move to the next one. I was only there for a couple minutes each, but at least the bands got a chance to see that, you know, the person that was curating this thing was interested in them. And I mean, of course, we couldn't have pulled it off without the venues, without those GMs and owners of the venues. The ambassadors, I mean, there's so many ambassadors that helped us pull it off, and I won't go through names, but again, it was a lot of fun putting it together. It's a shame that we had the bad weather come through that shut us down for, 2 hours and change? Yeah. But I mean, again, when you look at operations, there are so many things that people don't understand. The layperson doesn't understand that goes on behind the scenes to put on a successful event. Do you remember any hiccups?
Yeah, we had quite a few hiccups. Blackberry Smoke's manager was a hiccup for me, but we worked through that. The rain, I mean, I remember Jim on stage just getting the bands on, getting them off in between sets. And for him to be president of Chamber of Commerce and being on stage, just making sure everything happened.
It's funny you bring that up.
I had mad respect for you for that stuff.
It's funny you bring that up because I've known Jim for years, but I didn't know the roll up your sleeve kind of guy that he was. My God, I mean,
you see him in a suit and tie.
Yeah. He jumped in there. What do you remember?
I'm a worker bee. I'm an old country boy at the end of the day. That's what I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I work hard. But it was easy for all of us to jump in and do what needed to be done, Don, because nobody was going to outwork you. I don't even think you slept there for a few days. So none of us could complain about having to work or repair a fence because you were lapping us when it came to putting sweat equity into this event. So don't worry about that. You know what Matt's heard me say this a million times is R&D. That was almost, rip off and duplicate. So that's why I was saying, go to other festivals and let's don't reinvent the wheel. Let's just copy what they do. That's easier said than done. This was such a unique festival. You were really creating it from scratch. There were elements you could take from Pilgrimage or from other festivals that you went and did some R&D on, but this one was unique. There was not one like this, and so kind of that entrepreneurial spirit of we're going to kind of build this from the ground up. Again, that's what made it so unique, and I think it's a great template for another community. I think to use is, again, not only having a main festival grounds, but utilize your existing resources in the community of bars and restaurants and other music venues, and and creating musical genres that will appeal to everybody. And I think that's why Tuscaloosa had such a great time that weekend. Is there were no complaints. You could go where you wanted to go, where you were comfortable, and listen to the music that fits your taste and your style. And that's what made it unique. And I think other communities should follow suit.
And I want to actually follow up on that a little bit. We mentioned 19 different venues for this festival. It was all over in downtown Tuscaloosa. What was some of the feedback? And this is probably a question for all three of y'all. What was some of the feedback from the business owners that got to participate in that?
I'll let the Chamber of Commerce president talk about that.
Yeah, feedback was great because again, a lot of times when you have a big major event, some of your bars and restaurants can be fearful that it's going to pull business away. And this was exactly the opposite. People could go down to Government Plaza and enjoy the big stage. But every bar and restaurant that wanted to participate had an opportunity to really have a big financial windfall that weekend. And I didn't go to 19 locations. I got too busy talking and drinking at the few that I went to. But the ones that I went to were all packed. And people were having a great time, and you saw the entire community represented. You saw young folks, you saw older folks, you saw male, female, black, white. That's what made it so special, is because everybody was able to benefit from it.
Well, I'm proud of everything about the festival, the people I got to work with. Also, I got to be honest, the Friday night part of that, I'm most proud of, because it was, like Jim said, it was a buy-in from the community. And, I looked on this third page of this list here about the sponsors. I just realized that we had over 35 different businesses that stepped up to sponsor this, along with 19 different venues. It was truly a buy-in from our community. And Jim, you're right. I feel like there was a lot of the local folks that came here at Tuscaloosa, Northport, from around the area, if they weren't going to come for Saturdays because maybe it was too jam band heavy, it offered them on Friday night something that they could get excited about. So proud of that and thankful for the partnership. Miss you, my friend, and I thank you for everything that you did to help us get started. And Matt, I mean, you learned so much from this event that's going to help you going forward. It has helped you going forward with other ones you probably said no to.
I have. I got a question for you. Would you ever do this again?
Yes, I would. Maybe not right away, but I'll tell you what, I learned so much. You learn from your mistakes, as they say, and you take the good that you've learned and you repurpose. You get rid of some of the bad, and trying to pull this many off, you might have to streamline a little bit. But I learned a lot, and the one thing I learned most is, we had the most incredible volunteerism. It reminded me of the very first Super Six that we had at Bronte Stadium. We had almost 450 volunteers that first year to pull it off. Similar with the music festival. We couldn't have done it without the volunteers and folks here. So, I'd do it again. I get a lot of sleep though before the thing.
He'd do it again just so he could do the research.
Oh, I'm sure.
A few more times.
And it's pretty commonplace for festivals and things like this to have a shelf life. Speaking specifically to Huntsville, for years they had Big Spring Jam, and then it just kind of ran out of steam. And there was a lull. There hasn't been a music festival up here for many years, but this would be a way to put a shameless plug in for the South Star Festival that's coming up in just a few short weeks here in Huntsville, and it's Big Spring Jam on steroids. In terms, it's going to be bigger and better, and some major headlining acts over 2 days. And I've gotten involved with the music board here in Huntsville, so I'm going to be involved with that festival. But it just goes to show that there's still a real appetite and a real need for this. And I would love to see the Druid City Music Festival come back in some iteration. Maybe not 19 venues. That is a heavy lift, but there's such a musical history in Tuscaloosa of so many good national acts coming, but also so many great bands that got their start, playing at Egan's or playing at one of the cool places. Matt's new venue is going to be the launching pad for some new acts. And so I think it's fertile ground in Tuscaloosa and West Alabama for a really great music festival. And if and when that happens, I'm all in.
Well, listen, I can't wait to see you up in Huntsville. I think Shinedown is the lead.
Blink 182 is the lead, but it's Blink 182, Shinedown, Jane's Addiction, Gwen Stefani, Ludacris.
Middle school me is going crazy right now, man. It sounds awesome.
There's some really, really good bands on both days. It's going to be fun.
Well, look forward to seeing you, and thanks for joining us today, and thanks for the friendship.
I'm honored. I'm glad y'all hadn't forgot about me, but anyway, I was proud to be a part of this effort, and look forward to seeing y'all soon.
Cool.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to continuing this conversation with our next guests.
Absolutely.
SUGO is Tuscaloosa's newest Italian restaurant, offering a wide range of delicious, authentic Italian cuisine. They have a great lunch menu. They're open 11 to 2, 11 to 3 on Sundays. They have specialty sandwiches and pastas that you won't find in the evening time. They have delicious specialty cocktails, and no trip is complete without dessert, right? An outstanding homemade tiramisu that they offer, as well as a variety of other Italian desserts. That's SUGO Italian Restaurant. Visit them online, view their menu, make a reservation at sugoitalianrestaurant.com. They're located on University Boulevard in downtown Tuscaloosa. It's time to get noticed with Southmark Design. Southmark Design is a locally owned advertising specialties company right here in Tuscaloosa, specializing in in-house graphic design, commercial printing, and a number of promotional items. We're proud to rep Southmark Design products right here on The Reckoning. These great polos, these great hats. They look great, they feel great, and most importantly, they get us noticed. So give Scott and Scott a call. They are, again, locally owned. They put the customer above all else. Give them a call at the number on the screen or visit their website, southmarkdesign.com.
What's wrong with you? Why you got the weird look all over your face?
Claire's mom just made me grab her Hooters.
Well, snap out of it. What, a hot older woman made you feel her cans? Stop crying like a little girl.
I wasn't crying like a little girl.
Why don't you try getting under the table in front of the whole damn family and have some real problems? Jackass. What were they like anyway? They look pretty good. Are they real? Are they built for speed or for comfort? What'd you do with them? Motorboat? You play the motorboat? You motorboating son of a bitch. You old sailor, you. Where is she? She still in the house?
What is wrong with you?
And welcome back into the Reckoning Sports Tourism Podcast. And Don, you've got about 3/5 of an offensive line sitting at the table now. We brought in the big guns, literally. We've got Cameron Moss here. He's the owner of Big Spring Entertainment. And then we have Bo Hicks, of course, Tuscaloosa legend, noted American humorist is his official title he likes to go by. Of course, he owns Druid City Brewing, which is where we're at right now. So thanks for coming on board, guys.
Man, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I'm starting to feel like a kicker or the punter.
I've always said you've got those dainty legs, Don. So,
Well, it is so good to have these two guys join us because just like Jim Page, who helped get the Druid City Music Festival started down there at the Greenville benchmarking trip, coming back from that trip, I met this guy right here. Actually, I'd known Bo for years, but I wanted to tap into his knowledge on music and what his thoughts were. And we spent probably 2 hours in the hot sun. I'll let him tell the story, but I know that I asked him, you know what, this is the first time that's happened for me. Let me pick that back up. So anyways, when we got back from the benchmarking trip, I met this guy right here for about 2 hours outside of Druid City Brewing, which was across the street. And we talked about music in general, about this city, the kinds of music, and how to put one of these on. And we'll talk a little bit with Bo about that. And then I was wise enough because my mentors, Chuck Citizen and C.M. Newton and Kirk McNair, those guys recommended to me, admit what you don't know, surround yourself with smarter people. And so basically, I hired a consultant to help me to pull this music festival off. Cameron Moss, I mean, my God, we'll talk about this too. We fought like brothers. But let me tell you what, we could not have pulled this off without you. So I can't wait to talk with these two guys. Yeah, coming back from the benchmarking trip, it started with Bo.
Well, it was something that you reached out to me, and music has always been something that's been, very important. I think it's important for the community, and I think Cameron's going to be able to speak to this later too. It's an evolving landscape. There are peaks and valleys, and the wavelength will be stretched or compressed. But I think at the end of the day, if you can get the message to people, people want that live entertainment, and reaching them is its own beautiful snowflake of troubles and how you do it, modern technology. But, we sat out in the sun because we were in the old brewery and we did not have a patio that was covered, and probably had a couple too many beers. But, he brought up the idea, and I've always wanted to champion, having people come from other municipalities as opposed to Tuscaloosaans having to venture out. Not that there's anything wrong with catching a great show in Birmingham, Huntsville, Mobile, any of these places, but also we have the ability to do that here. And I was really excited to be asked, I think you gilded the lily a little bit of my involvement, but I was glad to at least lend what I had, learned or my ideas. And I felt really involved in it. And, it's still, one of my favorite things. And I get to tell people the stories about Lee Baines rocking up in my face and, the big boy's request for so many lemon pepper chicken wings, the ins and outs. I mean, it was a glorious day for me, and it made me proud because I saw the hard work everybody was putting in. And having met Cameron in the past, oddly enough, through the artist formerly known as Twitter, goofing on football, to see somebody that I tangentially knew, we've become even better friends since then. But I was glad that there was a proverbial adult in the room for that. So
wouldn't necessarily call him an adult. Thank you, Bo. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cameron, how do you remember? How did you join the group?
So I remember seeing, I don't know if it was either on AL.com or VTM, or there was some local news piece, with you on TV, basically saying, we want to do this in Tuscaloosa. So given my history of working at events and other facilities over the years, albeit Live Nation or Ticketmaster or Feld Entertainment, doing Circus and Monster Jam and Disney on Ice and pretty much anything else under the sun, I wanted to reach out just because we did have a prior connection when I was working in Hoover for sports facilities management, and just said, hey, this is what I'm doing now. Would this be something where I could help you guys along? Because I think the timeline at that point was maybe a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer, which is a very short runway to take something on of this size and scope. So I wanted to reach out, kind of let you know who I am and what I was doing and see if I could help.
I mean, that seems like a long amount of time, but to go from zero to hero to full, all the municipality things that you have to work out. I mean, there's so much red tape using public land, finding vendors, all that kind of stuff. Even though my experience is on a smaller scale, that's not a long runway to put together the caliber of event that transpired at Government Plaza. And so once again, adult.
Cameron, I want to ask, Don was telling me that he told me three things about you. One, that you're a hero for the music festival and a rock star. Two, he said that you guys fought all the time.
Yeah.
And then three, you couldn't land him Warren Haynes and Government Mule. So I want to hear your take on some of those fights.
We can leave off the fight like brothers. Yeah.
Let's say it was more strong disagreements is a good way to put it. When you're working on an event of this size and scope, you always want to lead with your best foot forward, right? And it's very difficult to do if you don't have a really good handle on the dynamics of live entertainment overall, because to pick up the phone and go book artist A sounds pretty easy in principle, but there's a lot of variables at play that not a lot of people know about or aware of, and really it's none of their concern. They just want to buy a ticket and go see this guy play.
Right.
We butted some heads on artist lineups because we were trying to land artists and make things work, but we also were battling Jazz Fest and the Memphis festivals and Bonnaroo and Hangout, the Sweetwater Fest in Atlanta. Like, there were a lot of things that we were trying to navigate, and as a first-time festival, it's very challenging to kind of establish yourself as a legitimate operation. So we navigated those obstacles, and at the end of the day, we put on a quality event. It just did have its challenges at times, and that's
Of course.
okay. If we weren't challenging ourselves, it would just be too ezy.
That's to be expected, right? He got a little bit of Coach Staley.
Well, yeah, he got a little Coach Staley, and remember Stan's story. But however, I learned so much. I mean, I learned so much from this guy, and I'm glad that you mentioned that to him, because I don't know if I've ever mentioned what a hero he was to me, because I know that this guy here in my backyard helped me so much, Jim Page, all these others, but without Cameron, and honestly, my staff at Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports, now visit Tuscaloosa, Sarah Hagemoms, she and I were like father-daughter, we fought as well.
Mm-hmm.
But she was amazing, and as was Cameron. And I learned so many things. And, it's like coaching, it's like recruiting. Sometimes you get your feelings hurt because the recruit goes somewhere else. We wanted, who was it? Humphreys McGee in the worst way.
Yeah.
And they were telling us that we hadn't got to that point that they trusted us in essence. And we still ended up with a great lineup, but I think Coach here pouted a little bit for a week or two.
It's okay.
Well, something me and Cameron were talking about backstage is when I do booking, especially if I'm approaching a moderately large artist like I'm doing for Kentuck, I am just some Yahoo from Tuscaloosa. I don't have the track record backing it up. So sometimes I've got to really cajole these people to, let them know, like, hey, I do have a track record, yes, I own a brewery, but, also we're doing this. I mean, and routing is such a real thing, as Cameron alluded to. Like, you got to have so many planets come align to put together a multi-band thing like that. There's a lot of moving parts, and to get them all to line up just right, even for me on the smaller scale, I couldn't imagine doing the booking side of that. I was just happy to be there. I think I kept the beer tin in business.
Well, something I was just thinking about is Cameron also allowed for me, and again, my mentors and this guy, admit what you don't know and surround yourself. So what I did is I dedicated so much of my efforts on the Friday night thing, because the big show was Saturday up there at Government Plaza, and he was dealing with the heavy hitters, the contracts, the riders. That was the first time I had ever heard the term rider, okay? I was just a coach and a salesman, a recruiter, all those things. But, Cameron got into the weeds and said, no, you don't want to give away the farm. Don't say yes to this. Don't say no, So he handled, for the most part, all of Saturday, which he did a marvelous job. And occasionally I would ask him questions on Friday, how to do this, and Bo as well. But you know what? It was the concentrated effort was also to raise money. Mm-hmm. So that's where these guys really came into play. I knew I had him on speed dial. I could call him at any time, just like Jim Page as well. Mm-hmm. And then Matt and Nikki were constantly meeting there with Sarah and staff to put this thing on. Mm-hmm. It's funny you brought up the rider with the wings. I think there was a particular booze that somebody wanted.
Yeah, I forgot it was, I think it was some specific bottle of Hennessy that you guys had to track down, which,
wasn't easy.
I mean, a lot of things on the rider, unfortunately, are there just for you to push back on. And it's kind of one of those like, well, we want to go through and make sure the person that we're working with on the show reads everything. Mm-hmm. But going out of our way and finding that specific bottle of Hennessy, I mean, little things like that do go a long way.
Well, I mean, what's the old adage that the obscure Van Halen thing was no brown M&Ms, but that was essentially so they could make sure that you read the rider, because they had so much pyrotechnics and other things that could be dangerous. Now, I mean, even here with my closing list, I do that with like, make sure that the receiver is turned onto this, but also I've also learned that it could be a give and get, especially if a band's on tour. They might not need 12 naked juices and stuff, and to ask and to show that you're reading that. But I mean, that's almost a whole sub job of itself when you're juggling, that many artists backstage. And, you know, something that we ran into, and I don't know if you're going to get this either, if you're doing an outdoor thing, like, man, you were doing the rain dance, pray. And I know that came into fact, but, you know, what can you do? You know?
Yeah. Saturday was a long day for a lot of reasons, not necessarily all good, not necessarily all bad, but yeah, we did have to deal with the rain.
Yeah.
That was very significant. I think we were around the 2 or 3 o'clock hour, and then the skies opened up. And Don, I remember sitting in the motorhome with everybody, and you know, we're looking at the radar, we're talking to the weather teams, and we've got assigned on the event, and you know, we're sitting there real time having to make calls and production and striking these bands and changing set times. I mean, it was a very fluid, high intensity, you know, time period to get through. You know, so all in all, to say it was difficult, and we made it as best as we could because we wanted to put the best foot forward for the city, your sponsors, making sure everybody had an event that they enjoyed coming to, and that in theory we could replicate and do again. But again, COVID and everything else that happened, you know, from 20 to 21, 22.
Well, I mean, it's also one of those things that you learn every time you do one of these. You get to do it better. Like every beer fest I've ever done. Okay, the queuing didn't work. You know, there's 9 million things that you learn on that first one that you can only grow on. And, you know, who knows? Maybe something will happen again, you know, in the future. And I think lessons learned. So anyway.
Well, I've got one of the questions, even though it's written down here, it's been in my head for so long. Do you remember the story of one of my favorite bands that didn't get to play?
Right.
We brought them back for the virtual music festival that we did.
Right.
Raised a pretty good amount of money for Tuscaloosa recovery and whatnot. But do you remember us going in and having to tell a band that they weren't playing? You remember that story?
Yeah, I do. It was pretty challenging because, again, you got to remember, by this point we were making changes on the fly. We were trying to salvage what we could for the rest of the day. You know, and bands at the end of the day, yes, I mean, it's great that they came and got a check and, you know, they were paid to perform. Unfortunately, they didn't get to perform. So, you know, a lot of those times artists are just as disappointed as we are,
Right.
that they didn't have that opportunity. But again, you know, at that point, we were literally trying to salvage what we could, you know, to get Blackberry Smoke and Big Boy and the remainder of the lineup on stage.
And Cameron's right, but he's being so nice right now. Yours truly made the mistake. I went in and told Southern Avenue that they weren't, no, it was Turquoise.
Yeah.
That they weren't playing when in fact they were playing. It was Southern Avenue that we had to 86, but that's why we brought them back.
Yeah.
So anyways, there's so many stories, so many interesting, there's just not enough time to tell them all, but I will say this, that again, we did something great for our community. You know, those businesses downtown, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. It's a challenge to put it together, and without you guys here, we wouldn't have been successful. So anyways, real quick, tell us what you got going on these days.
Yeah, sure. So being a co-owner with Big Spring Entertainment, we own and operate Druid City Music Hall here in Tuscaloosa. We've got around 30 shows on the books for this fall. We've got a few more coming up that we'll be announcing for the spring. But a lot of great artists, Charles Wesley Godwin, Knox, plenty of artists coming, all different genres. So we're really trying to make the music hall something again, because it's been a little bit of a struggle for a couple of years post-COVID, and even before that. We're trying to get regular programming across all genres at a reasonable ticket price. And you go and look at the majority of the shows that we're doing, those ticket prices are $15 to $20, some more. But again, our goal is to kind of make the music hall a central focus for not only the students, but also the residents of the area, to give you an option to where you don't have to drive to, you know, Huntsville or Birmingham or Mobile or elsewhere. So we've got that going on, and we've also got a couple of festival ideas that we're kicking around for next year as well. maybe some city involvement, not necessarily in Tuscaloosa. I haven't brought that up to you guys yet, but we're always reaching out to markets in and around the Southeast to kind of work with venues and municipalities and, just kind of see if they're interested in jumping into the live entertainment business.
One of the things that we really like to do is we try to be a constant emporium, and we take kind of lower level artists touring, but we also, it doesn't matter to us if it's something me or Tyler Marshall, who works with me here, like if we think it's musical valuable. So we've got a matinee show coming up. I'm not sure when this will be out, on the evening of the 15th, next Friday, with Doc Daly and Caleb Elliott, some Florence musicians, and Caleb being with Single Lock Records. But then we do a weekly open mic, and we just try to keep our head on a swivel. We try to let people know. Once again, me and Cameron were talking backstage about how do you engage with people these days, and this is a way. But also, how do you interact with the people that want to come to music now? So that's something we're constantly learning. We invite people to tell us what we think. The shows are low cost. A lot of them are free. Some of them start early. I mean, all of our shows are early, because even our late shows start at 8.
Right.
For us people that start having Chrome come in their beard,
Right.
it's important to get bed. So we're just constantly going on, and we're looking to do kind of a bigger show towards the end of the year, and hopefully we'll have more information coming on that soon.
Real quick, Caleb Elliott, he played during the music festival here, didn't he? At your location.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's on so many of those Single Lock Records, which is John Paul White's label, and Reed Watson, who is a Tuscaloosan, up in Florence. He's at like cello, acoustic guitar. I mean, he can really do it all. He just put out an album maybe 5 months ago called Weed, Wine, and Time, and it is very introspective, but also just an amazing record. He's a world-class musician, so we're happy to have him coming back, especially with Doc Daly, who has the best high, lonesome voice and sort of non-goobery country music these days.
Non-goobery. I like that terminology. I like that terminology.
Scientific term.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to do a shameless plug about the food here.
Well, something that we've opened up recently is Elle's Kitchen, which is named after my business partner, Elliot Roberts, who passed away this past spring, but we wouldn't be here without him. And if there's one thing that he really liked, it was a cold beer and some good food. And so we named it after that. And so we want to have something, just because we're a brewery, that can also bring in people that might not care for alcohol for whatever reason. I mean, we don't really care. We want to provide the service of entertainment. I mean, we're a business, we have to stay open, but that's why we have food. We have several different non-alcoholic options, so you don't feel like you just have to drink a Sprite. And so we're constantly learning to evolve what our community needs and wants. And thankfully, we're still supple enough. I'm not too stiff yet to sort of bend and grow to those needs.
Well, trust me, I know since I moved back home, I've picked up about 10 pounds, and a lot of that's coming from Elle's Kitchen.
Well, I appreciate it.
So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate you.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
it looks like producer Jacob's telling us it's time for a commercial break. So we'll be right back with some more from these guys. Make sure your HVAC unit is running up to speed and keeping your family comfortable all year long with Bibb Heating and Air. Bibb Heating and Air is a fully licensed and insured HVAC company here, providing all of West Alabama with first-class customer service every single time. The owner and operator is Devin Morgan. He's a good buddy of mine. Personal endorsement. He installed my new heat pump about a year ago. Could not be more pleased with the process. It was quick. It was efficient. It was affordable. So call Bibb Heating and Air today at the number on your screen if your system needs a checkup, or if you're considering a new unit. Mention the Reckoning Sports Tourism Podcast, and my pal Devin will knock off your dispatch fee. That's $50 in savings for mentioning the Reckoning. Again, that's Bibb Heating and Air. Call their number on the screen.
Welcome back in. Just a couple more questions before these guys leave. Cameron, one burning question for me is, and other people want to know too, how did you put together this lineup? I know it's not easy. I know that we talked earlier about, how much work goes into it, but how did you come up with this great lineup? And I know I was criticized a little bit, Don, it's heavy on jam bands, and I'm not, and this is one for Bo maybe too, is Tuscaloosa may not be a jam band kind of town, but how'd you pull it off?
A lot of it was a little lucky, I'll be honest with you. A lot of it also had to do with, us kind of using a talent buyer, Steve Gudis, who, unfortunately left us a couple of years ago, great guy. But, we were trying to make the puzzle fit at a very difficult time of year because the music industry effectively shuts down second week of December through New Year's. And if I remember correctly, we were trying to announce this like mid-January. So being able to get artists to agree to a first-year festival at a very difficult time of year, it did have its challenges. We did kind of poke through. A lot of that had to do with Gudis' reputation because, again, it was him coming on board helping to facilitate the legitimacy of a first-year event, if that is probably the best way to put it. So I don't want to say that this was kind of thrown together nonchalantly, and there was some intent to kind of make it a broad appeal to people here. It was Big Boy or Blackberry Smoke or Southern Avenue Talk and others, and having Lee Baines open it up. CBDB, I think, was still on it at the time when they were together. So, I mean, we did a very good job of kind of merging the regional draws with artists, in addition to the national touring artists, but also, too, a lot of that was out of necessity and finding out who was willing to work, that third or fourth weekend in August. So, a lot of work. A little bit of luck, but we got it done.
Well, one of those cautionary tales. I mean, we all remember that Firefest documentary.
Yeah.
And so, literally people got burned on that.
Right.
And so once again, people taking a chance, on an event, and you've got a book who is on the road and who is willing to come. And like I said, routing is its own beautiful creature. We try to catch people when they're passing from New Orleans to Nashville or to Birmingham. We're dealing with smaller people, so there's not a halo clause. But some of the artists you probably would have liked to get, there'll be such a halo clause around a Nashville or Atlanta.
That, and I don't want to dabble on it too much, but we did have some mileage and clearance window radius issues. Typically on a festival soft ticket offer, your radius is at least 200, maybe 250 miles. I mean, this was not a major headliner, commanding a 300, 400 mile radius, but having to release a Birmingham show to make it work and kind of put our festival in a negative position, that was a little challenging, but we worked through it as we do.
I'm glad that you brought that up about Firefly. One of the things that I think some of these acts and promoters were impressed with is we paid them up front.
Right.
We paid them up front for performing here. That spoke volumes to the fact that, this is a first-year festival, and look at what they're doing. That also speaks to the fact that we had great partners here, sponsors here, and I'd be remiss if, you start talking about routing, and there's somebody that I left out. I mean, there's so many folks here that I could talk about that helped us with the festival, folks that were part of the original music festival that was here, City Fest. But Bill Lloyd, like yourself, booked a lot of music over the years, and I leaned on him heavily as well. And some of these terms are all not now coming back to me. And routing, what you kept reminding me at times, Don, they can't get here if they're up there.
Right.
But anyways, thanks for bringing that up.
I mean, not to be too inside baseball like we were talking, but a radius clause is basically if you play somewhere, you can't play within a window around it because, the person that's, paying for that show doesn't. So I don't mean to get all shop talky.
No, but that's valuable information, and I'm glad that the folks who are listening understand that it's not as simple as people think.
It's not just making a call and putting it on and then people can buy tickets. There's so much behind the curtain.
Yeah, I mean, it's years of time to make it work effectively, and you want to do it the right way. I mean, a break even for a festival, no matter really of any size, it's going to be about 3 years. That's what you're getting into.
I'm sitting here, you can see I'm smiling ear to ear right now. I'm thinking of that moment I'm driving one morning early, too early for Cameron to get a phone call, but he did. Cameron, I'm on Sirius XM 309. I can't remember what the station used to be before they switched to 309, but that's what I listened to. And they were talking about us.
Yeah.
And you were probably groggy that morning. It's like, okay, Don, great. Yeah. But I mean, it was so many of those moments that we had with this event. Real quick, to solidify this great show today, did you have a favorite? Was there a favorite act of yours? And was there a favorite act of yours, Bo?
Bo, why don't you go first?
Well, to put a bow on this podcast, I know it was cut a little short by time constraints, but I was really excited to see Big Boy and Blackberry Smoke. But, opening up the show, Lee Baines, a personal friend of mine that I think really represents Alabama well. I think we've got a date with him in October here in the Moon Room.
Oh, good.
So he'll be coming back and doing a solo show. So, that remember and just seeing like the constituents, like I almost said they were my constituents. I'm really not the midnight mayor. I'm like the 8:30 mayor now. To see those people enjoy themselves, I enjoyed it all. I wasn't familiar as much, but once again, it's not about what I like. You have to trust the fact, okay, they've got these acts. Some of my favorite bands I've discovered not knowing who they are at a festival because it gives them exposure that they might not have.
Right. I would say the whole thing kind of came to a head. It might have been during Big Boy's set. You got to remember, I think I was running off of 2.5 days with no sleep,
Yeah.
So everything on that Saturday outside of the key moments, even looking back now, is kind of a blur. But I remember kind of talking with you, Don, during Big Boy's set, because I know we were working on some curfew issues. But then once we kind of got through everything, I think the finality of it is when I was able to kindly take your foot off the gas for the first time in 18 months or however long it was, and just say, look what you guys were able to do. Not to say that there weren't challenges at that time when everything was wrapping up, and not to say there weren't challenges after.
Mm-hmm.
But just to look there at your team that you had boots on the ground, and for us to put that level of an event on with what we had was truly impressive. So again, thank you again for giving me the opportunity to work with your team on it.
Well, thank you to the two of you. You guys were incredible. I know that my co-host here unfortunately didn't make it because he was in College Station.
I was breaking into the sports tourism industry. I was actually on a job interview that weekend in College Station with, it was then Bryan College Station Sports and Events, now Compete College Station and another entity at the city of Bryan. But unfortunately I couldn't make it. And that's a shame because I'm a big Blackberry Smoke fan. So I would have enjoyed listening to them in my hometown.
Well, I know we talked about before the show and the fact that you were sad that you couldn't make it, but you were excited about that opportunity, which segue is this. We'll have Kendra Fry, who you went to work for, coming on in a couple of weeks. We'll talk a little bit about College Station and Bryan and music festivals down there as well. And I don't know, who knows? There's two of the brightest stars in our industry up here that could come down and give them some help.
No.
Yeah, no kidding.
High fives and hugs for me only. I don't pretend to have wisdom.
Wishes of good luck
yes.
from far away.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks for joining us again. Bo, thanks for the hospitality.
Always a pleasure,
I
Don.
love my Neon Moon and looking forward to a little L's Kitchen later today.
All right. Sounds good. Thank y'all for having me.
That's good. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Great.
Yeah.
that's going to do it for all of us here at Channel 4 News. You stay classy, San Diego. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Damn it! Who typed a question mark on the teleprompter?
Yeah, and welcome back into the Reckoning Sports Tourism Podcast. What a show, man. I'm kind of pardon the French, I'm kind of a slut for logistics, man. I like hearing about how the sausage is made, and kind of hearing some of those stories from you, from Jim Page, from Matt Ray, from everybody about how that festival came together was a lot of fun.
You know what? I'm getting an opportunity to relive what we did 5 years ago, and I'm smiling from ear to ear this whole show because, you know, there were so many incredible people that were involved, and it truly was a community effort.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes you just hit on all cylinders where you bring in the right people. And I got lucky.
Yeah.
I got very, very fortunate with the people that came in. So I'm proud of what we did, and I'm a better person for the people that I was around to put this on. And I learned a great deal.
Yeah.
You know, if I ever did one of these again, I would try to bring in as many of the people that helped me on this one. I'd bring them back.
Yeah. Well, I do think it was funny, something that we saw in this show today, and maybe our viewers picked up on it as well. Don loves to hand out compliments left and right. He does not like to receive compliments. And I thought it was funny when Jim Page started, giving a glowing review of yourself, and Cameron and Bo and Matt did as well. You just kind of shy away from the limelight. But I want to reiterate that music festival was put on because of Don Staley and his staff over at TTS, now Visit Tuscaloosa.
Staff, for sure.
You did a service to this community by putting that on.
Well, you know what? I learned a lot after coming from Virginia down here to start the women's soccer program at Alabama, and that was because I invested time. Hootie Ingram and Don Gambrill told me, invest time at the Bryant Museum. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you what, I went to school off of Coach Bryant's, the videotapes and Coach Stallings and all that. Of course, later learned about winning, just like Coach Bryant from Coach Saban. But what he talked about was, you take the losses. You're the head coach. You're responsible for the losses. The wins, you spread that around.
Absolutely.
And so the way I look at it is, it was all of us. The losses, though, comes to the boss. So we had a lot of losses on this one that we won't talk about, but at the end of the day, it worked out pretty good. And more importantly, it was great for our community. But again, I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
So what's coming up next, Don?
Can't wait to be up in the Shoals. You know what? We learned a whole bunch to help us with the music festival because of the Handy Festival. We're going to visit with the CEO, President and CEO, Rob Carnegie, his sports director, Tyler Dolan, and of course, Keely over there at the Marriott Shoals, who just got an honor. She was here recently for the Governor's Conference. She's always just a bright, shining star of that area, one of their best promoters. I think they call her the Dream Weaver. And so I can't wait to be up there to highlight that area and that great DMO.
I'm looking forward to it. This is a tourism podcast, sports tourism podcast. Let's go be tourists. Let's go check out the Shoals, man. I'm looking forward to that one.
We're taking the show on the road.
Absolutely. We're ramblers, man. Just real quick, want to give a shout out to a few of our sponsors. River Run Park, they're that's the new development building being built up in Northport. Don, I'll let you talk about the park a little bit.
Well, I think I'd mentioned this on the last show that our title sponsor for this show is River Run Park. This developer out of Indianapolis, actually Westfield, Indiana, was part of the build out for the #1 mega sports complex in the country, and that is Graham Park Sports Campus. And this is the developer for this project over in Northport. Right now, they're moving dirt at a rapid pace. Mm-hmm. So I can't wait for us to be able to talk more about this going forward. I got a feeling we're going to be dedicating a show to this too.
Yeah, I feel like that's a strong possibility, and it's an outstanding looking facility based off the renderings. And as a resident here in the community, I'm looking forward to having my kids be able to play on surfaces like that and at a facility like that. So thank you to River Run Park. Thank you once again to all of our sponsors: SUGO Italian Restaurant, Bibb Heating and Air, Buffalo Rock, Of course, thanks to Bo Hicks for renting out the Moon Room to us. I'm sure I'm forgetting others. The Shoals, of course, we're heading up there next week. And then, of course, Southmark. I mean, we look great in these new shirts. My wife loves the baby blue on me. So Don did a great job picking that shirt out. But yeah, thanks to them. And of course, thanks to you guys for listening to us. And we're excited to take the show on the road, as Don said, next week.